Okay, I think we're live then. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for This Week with Mallory, our new title to our coffee hours. And although that is the new name, this week Senator McMorrow will actually not be joining us, but fortunately, and I'm really excited to bring back our special topic-based and issue-based conversations we have for our focused coffee hours. We used to do these a lot more earlier in the year, so I'm looking forward to bringing them back and having a special guest with us today. So with this week, previous week, it being World Mental Health Day, and our guest today, Common Ground, celebrating 50 years, we wanted to bring Jeff from Common Ground, their Chief External Relations Officer, to come talk more about Common Ground, the resources and programs they provide, and a little bit more about the surrounding conversation of mental health across our state, across our nation, and around the world, and the importance of supporting those who are struggling with mental health at every capacity. So, Jeff, if you want to introduce yourself and talk about yourself and Common Ground.
Well, thank you so much, Liz. Yes, my name is Jeff Kapusinski, and as you mentioned, I am the Chief External Relations Officer here at Common Ground. For those of you unfamiliar with Common Ground is a crisis response agency. We have been helping people move from crisis to hope in Oakland County and beyond for more than 50 years. We operate a resource and crisis helpline, which probably a lot of people have accessed through our 1-800 number. We also provide a lot of services out of the Resource and Crisis Center up in Pontiac. It's part of the county complex up there. In addition, and probably more familiar to a lot of your listeners, is the Sanctuary, which is where we base our runaway and homeless youth programming, and that's located right there in Royal Oak on Henry Boulevard.
Great. So I wanted to know a little bit more about Common Ground and their history and how, I guess you guys came to be so involved in Oakland County, and so I guess present across Oakland County and across the state.
Yeah, we, as you said, we're celebrating 50 years. We started in 1971. It was basically a group of students and teachers in Birmingham high schools that came together wanting to address a rise in teen suicide and substance use. And so collectively, they put together what is now our Resource and Crisis Helpline, answering calls, guiding young students that were, maybe struggling, having issues. And that's really kind of grown into what we are today, which is a nonprofit agency that helps more than 80,000 people on an annual basis. That resource and crisis, or that initial phone line, has launched into a multimedia platform where we not only accept phone calls and conversations, but we also are able to text and chat, online chat with people. And we have more than 50,000 of those conversations each year. That's about 1,000 a week that come through the Resource and Crisis Helpline. And it's not just Oakland County. That actually stretches beyond our borders throughout the state of Michigan. We get calls from throughout the country, and in fact have had a couple of international calls that have come in on the Resource and Crisis Helpline. People that have probably found us through our website, which is commongroundhelps.org.
Wow. I did not know you guys served that large of a, I guess, audience.
Well, we're not intended to.
Yeah.
We're primarily here to serve the residents of Oakland County, but certainly if someone finds our 1-800 number and needs our assistance, we're there to help.
That's great. And you guys are 24 hours, right?
We
24
are.
hours, 7 days a week.
That's correct.
That's great. With the topic of mental health, you guys work a lot in that. Over the last year, it's been a pretty taxing year on a lot of individuals, stress, anxiety, all those. What kind of changes have you seen within the last year regarding mental health, and maybe some of the programs that you've seen, or I guess maybe the capacity that you guys had over the last year with mental health?
It's fascinating. That's obviously been a very popular topic, and how people are reacting and dealing with the pandemic. Certainly, it has raised a lot of people's anxieties. It has heightened folks who were already maybe dealing with a mental health issue and increased those symptoms. For Common Ground specifically, it was interesting when the pandemic really hit Michigan back in March of last year. In-person visits went down dramatically. I
Hmm.
think people were afraid to go out into the community, but the calls to the resource and crisis line went up 50%.
Oh,
So
wow.
people were reaching out to us in that manner. But it only took about a month and a half, maybe 2 months tops, and our traffic patterns, in-person traffic patterns, returned to normal. And so we're seeing about 8,000, 8,500 people a year out at the Resource and Crisis Center in Pontiac looking for in-person treatment. And so we know that that's just a fraction of what's out there. There was a study done back in 2019 called Crisis Now. And it's fascinating because it uses some formulas to kind of project the number of people that will need uh, crisis services. And for a county the size of Oakland, which is 1.2 million people, that formula projects as many as 29,000 people each year will be in need of crisis services. And if we're only seeing about 8,000 or 8,500 at the crisis center, you can imagine what kind of pent up demand there is for the services, the type of services that Common Ground offers.
Great. And I've previously, for advocacy days in Lansing, have had the pleasure of meeting some of the youths you serve at the sanctuary. Can you talk more about that program? I know there's a certain track that they get on to, um, there's a certain like program they go through and resources to be able to learn more and grow and develop within the sanctuary. Are you able to talk more about that at all?
Absolutely. The sanctuary is actually a house in
Hmm.
Royal Oak, and it contains our runaway and homeless youth programming. And our runaway and homeless youth programming is actually made up of three individual programs. The first one is something that we call Basic Center. It's intended for kids who are age 10 to 15, who are either homeless or at risk of becoming homeless. And the program is set up to house those kids for up to 3 weeks. Now, they do need parental or guardian permission in order to enter that program. But the goal of that program is, in fact, family reunification. And over the past 18 months, we have reached that goal 100% of the time, where those kids are able to return home to the family. But while they're at the house, and that stay can be, again, be up to 3 weeks, they have to maintain schooling. They have to work and perform chores around the house, just like any other kid would do. But it's a terrific program. And for kids that are a little bit older, 16 and 17 specifically, we have a program called A Step Forward. For those kids, family reunification is oftentimes less likely. And so for those kids, they can stay at the sanctuary home for up to 2 years. But the same rules apply. They have to participate in the therapies. They have to continue to go to school or work if they have a job. But it's been very, very successful. And finally, the third program is something called Graduated Apartment Program. And it's intended for young adults aged 18 to 24. So if you've been following along, it starts as young as 10 and
Hmm.
takes kids up as high as 24. And the Graduated Apartment Program really is subsidized housing. Common Ground maintains apartments around Oakland County. And to gain entrance into this program, the individuals have to participate and meet regularly with their case manager. They have to maintain employment so that they can pay at least a portion of the rent. But it's a great way to give young adults a head start or that first
Hmm.
step forward in their lives. And it's an important part of our runaway and homeless youth programming.
Yeah, that's a great program. Thank you for sharing more about that. Um, Going back to the question that I asked prior to the one about the sanctuary, and talking about mental health, in your experience of working a lot of with individuals struggling with mental health and in crisis situations, how do you think that we can break down those barriers and also destigmatize talking about mental health and the struggles that people are experiencing and a really emotional point?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's always out there. It's always looming. People talk about the stigma. I think if there's one thing good that has come out of this pandemic, it's the fact that people are more comfortable talking about how they're feeling and being very open with that. And so that's an encouraging thing, and it's obviously something that we support. We're out trying to talk about it every day in the community when we do our community outreach through our programming. And certainly, if someone were to call the Resource and Crisis Helpline, they would hear that similar message. It's a message of acceptance and that it's okay to be struggling. That's
Yeah.
why you have organizations and services like the ones Common Ground provides.
Yeah. I know I've seen it in my peers and in my circle, people being more open about what they're struggling with or, their mental health at that point. Um, so for those that are maybe tuning in or have loved ones that are maybe struggling with mental health, how can they come into contact with you again?
Well, again, the first and usually the first point of access is our resource and crisis helpline. That's a 1-800 number. It's 1-800, if I can give that out. It's 1-800-231-1127, 1127. People can call or text that number. They can also reach us through their computer. If you go to our website at commongroundhelps.org, there's a button there to chat with someone, and you'll actually be chatting with a live person who will be responding and working, helping you find solutions to the troubles that you're having. Our job is to connect people with resources and help them find the right path forward.
Great. And I'll leave that information in the comments once this stream ends for those that need it. And how can we, maybe someone that's really passionate about mental health services and providing those resources to people, how can people support Common Ground that aren't necessarily in need of the services?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, financially,
Mhm.
we are a nonprofit organization, so 90 cents out of every dollar donated goes directly back into services here, and that's very important. But we also get a lot of folks that will donate in kind, whether that be food or clothing. I have to say, right now we are full up with clothing. We've had a deluge of that during the pandemic, and have more than we can store right now. But another way that people can help is by volunteering. The number one place within Common Ground for volunteers is our resource and crisis helpline. But it's not just that easy. In order to answer calls on the resource and crisis helpline, people would have to complete a 96-hour training program that we offer. It's pretty intense, but it prepares people for the types of calls and situations that they're going to be thrust in when they start answering those calls. Calls that we get are, everything from, hey, I'm homeless, I need a place to live, to, hey, my boyfriend broke up with me, up to and including active suicides. So it really is a broad spectrum of situations that the folks on our phone lines are dealing with, and we obviously need to prepare people if they're going to answer calls there.
Yeah. And we mentioned this a couple of times, but you're at 50 years this year, your 50th anniversary.
Mhm.
So how are you guys celebrating 50 years?
Well, we're pretty excited about it. It's kind of been a year-long celebration where we've been looking back at some of the historical milestones, and we've been sharing that on our social media and our website. But the big we're having a big party next Sunday, October 24th. We're having a party, a celebration in the morning. It's at M1 in Pontiac for our staff and volunteers, and then there's a ticketed event in the evening. For donors and supporters and things like that. And the proceeds from that event will be going to help support our new behavioral health urgent care that we want to open for the community.
Yeah. So you're at 50 years. What's the future look like for Common Ground?
It's bright. The need for services continues to grow, and obviously we feel compelled to grow with that need. I just mentioned behavioral health urgent care. That's an unheard of program here in southeastern Michigan. There is one in the entire state of Michigan that I'm aware of. It's out in the Grand Rapids area. But this is similar to a physical urgent care in that it's meant for less acute situations. But we think that the demand is really great. People that are dealing with anxiety, for example, or perhaps need a prescription refill and can't get in to see their psychiatrist, could come to an urgent care center and get that kind of help and treatment. So it's going to be opening virtually early next year, and we hope to have a physical location for that open later in the year. So it's a pretty exciting development for Common Ground, and I think for the future of mental health in general.
Yeah. Looking forward to seeing that and the impact it'll have in our community. But yeah, those are the questions I have. I just want to say again, a big thank you to you, and a thank you for Common Ground for being such an excellent resource, and such a great place for people to go to in our community. I don't know if you have any final wrap up thoughts.
No, I just to say thank you, not only to you, but the constituents. I mean, we feel definitely a part of the community here, and it's because of the people that are obviously watching this program and supporting those efforts that we're able to do what we do. And so I would just say thank you, and please check out our website. Don't be afraid to refer your friends and family should they need that extra bit of help.
All right. Well, with that, I will let everyone enjoy the rest of their Friday, and look forward to their weekend. Again, thank you, and see you guys later.
All right.